saw some of the videos you made on Instagram. I thought it was cool doing your little city tours or whatever. So and
Oh yeah,
talking,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I was doing a little breakdown of like, yeah, the different cities and like the pros and cons of each, and yeah, why I like each one. Yeah.
yeah. So when we were talking like just a second ago, you'd mentioned that you'd started writing this second novel and to get like into the groove or whatever and just kind of go for it. Is that so? Do you just kind of like work through it as much as you can, or like?
Yeah, so this definitely was not part of my plan. Like my plan, and I'm still going to stick to my original plan that thought I was going to do. In that, I'm heading to Medellin on Wednesday, this Wednesday coming, right? Because my initial plan, even when I was just like 2 months into writing the book, is like it would be very cool to at some point in the writing process of the first book be like boots on the ground back in Medellin, right? So
Yeah,
like that is the plan. I'm still going to do that, but I also allotted a certain period of time to be in Bogota, which I'm in Bogota, Colombia now. And since I've been in Bogota, even though I'm still like refining and kind of at the point with book one where what it really needs now, in my opinion, is line editing. It's like it's those little intricate details that actually make a big difference, in terms of flow and description of certain places and characters and all this. And also, what do you need to cut, right? Like, what is just like, that doesn't need to be said. It's already being said. Um, so that's where I am with book one, and I still need to do that. But Bogota, interestingly, instead of it just being me line editing book one, I just started getting like super inspired by Bogota. And I basically got a concept for what book two will be, because I decided maybe a month or so back that I don't just want to be like stuck to just writing books about Medellin.
mhm,
So if I'm going to make this a series, I decided to call it like something like the tourist series or something. And then it's like the tourist character can move around from city to city and just be like and discover these like new worlds, right? And he's not just locked into one. So it's like if book one is Danger in the Valley, Medellin, book two, working title right now is Power in the Capital, because Bogota is the capital city of Colombia. Power in the Capital, Bogota, right? And yeah, just
that's
some
dope.
of the things I've seen and just have just like inspired a whole other second book. Pretty
So
excited
do
about
you
it.
so do you normally like come up with like a theme, or I guess that was kind of a theme that you kind of described there with the capital, but do you outline everything, or how does this work out of curiosity when you're doing like a long ass book like that?
So yeah, for book one, like I tried to outline it more. And then what happens is like you come up with like a rough outline. And then you'll go through like phases of it, like it changing based off of also things that you learn, right? Like my initial concept for book one was something more like two cartel bosses on either side of this valley, right? But then based on the type of crime that book one is based off of, which is actually more like lower level kind of gang related crime, I'm like, well, no, it can't just be two cartel bosses sitting on either sides of the valley, because that would be basically too boring, because cartel bosses are not directly involved in like they sit back and like through abstraction and stuff, that's how they avoid the
Law.
yeah, or having the crimes associated to
Yeah.
them, right? So I'm like, I need more than just two cartel bosses sitting on opposite sides of the valley here. So I restructured everything there, and then it just becomes like way more detailed, right? With the characters and their roles and all this. So even if you do come up with an outline, it will change. I think if you're doing your job as a writer. However, with book two, and I think I like this more. Um, I don't really have a full outline. It's like taking it chapter by chapter, right? And it's probably my experience from book one that has allowed me to do that, because I just have now even more of a natural instinct of like, where does this next one need to go? Right. And I do have this kind of like maybe a map in the back of my head of where I think this is going. Right. But we're just kind of like, I'm taking it chapter by chapter, just, figuring it out as I go, which I
Is it?
actually think it works pretty well. As long as
It,
yeah.
I was gonna say, is it hard to like sometimes get lost in the detail though, like seeing like the forest from the trees when it's so dense and deep?
I don't know. I've been finding it going pretty smooth, because something that I know is that, let's say I write a chapter, right? Like I'll just give something away. I decided that the tourist character, where in book one he kind of like just narrowly avoids like all danger. Like he does find himself in like some, like coming very close, but nothing bad like really ends up happening to him. Nothing too life threatening. In book two, even early on, within like the first like 10 chapters or whatever, he gets like robbed at gunpoint on the street, right?
Yeah.
So and that's something that like I just decided in book two, something actually needs to happen to this guy, right? Like, you can only have so much luck, right? So in book two, he gets robbed early on, and it kind of like, puts him mm, into a more like sort of self-aware, maybe slightly almost like more paranoid, and just, yeah, just even more aware of just how much this is not a game, and danger, like, and bad things can happen, right? If you're not very careful, right? So something like that happens, but they only take him of his cash. Like the person who holds him at gunpoint is just like empties his wallet of the cash, and actually just like gives it back to him, and then gets back on the motorbike. And he's like surprised by it. It's like, why did the guy even give it back? But interestingly, there is a reason why they would give it back. Because they can't, well, at their like low level street crime, they can't really do much with the cars and stuff because it's too traceable and stuff. Um, yeah. So okay. Yeah. The bigger picture of where I was going with that is, if I write a chapter like that and I realize, oh, that was actually too soon for that to happen in the book, I need to move that like way further, so that in the beginning he's just more in a sort of like state of like illusion or whatever, and still just finds everything just like exciting and fun and stuff. And then like the actual like, tragic moment needs to come like later or something. Then I can always move that around like easily, right? So once you realize that nothing is set in stone, right, on these drafts, then that is very like freeing, right? And you can write something that is that's not going to work for the book ultimately, that you might completely scrap, and you have to be okay with that.
Kill your darlings kind of thing, like if it doesn't fit.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And that can be everything down to like the like words, sentences, paragraphs, entire chapters, right? And you'll always see it so much clearer when you go back, month or two later, and then you read the whole book again. You'll be like, oh wow, yeah, I thought that paragraph was like a good length when I was writing it. But it's like, okay, I went into way too much detail there. Like the reader doesn't need all that detail, and they're not going to want that much detail. So I can chop that in half.
How do you know like when it's done, or like how do you know like how many times to go over it, and like how to keep? Because I guess you could always keep on
Yeah,
refining. Like at what point does it become done?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I think that's kind of like what I'm figuring out with the first book right now. But there are still there are still things, but they are becoming, like I said, very clear on what needs to change. But there are still things in book one that do need to change. They're, for the most part, thankfully, pretty subtle. Like the actual logic of the book works as a whole, and there's nothing really that, like, because I even though it's fiction, I do want it to be like believable. It's about like Medellin gang and cartel crime and stuff like this, right? So there's nothing that's like not even like not like fathomable or whatever. Like it kind of like it works logically and all that, and like and the story arc as a whole works and stuff. But now it's like, oh, I hate the way that sentence sounds. It's too stiff, or we need more. This character here actually never gets described, like in terms of like what they look like. Like we need more detail on what they actually look like, at least like once. Um, that's an interesting thing I learned, is that like when you introduce a character in a book, you kind of you need like one good I've found you need like one good description of them, kind of like in the beginning, on what they look like, and then everything that comes after that is kind of like, you might say something, he fixed his glasses or something, or he like he ran his fingers, or he was how would you say this? Yeah, he ran his fingers through his beard or hair or something like this, right? Um, but you don't need to like re-describe what they look like almost ever again, which is interesting.
Hmm. That is
Mhm.
interesting. So are you like when you're cruising around these cities and like visiting them, are you kind of just like thinking about the book, like kind of subconsciously and just getting inspired like by things throughout the day, and maybe that gets into the book somehow? What's up, John, by the way?
Yeah, yeah, John. I actually just hopped on the first call ever with John recently, and it was a really awesome call. And on the subject of book two, I think, actually, I know that call with John did kind of it probably was the thing that just like gave me so much inspiration for book two all of a sudden, because we were talking about my book one, just from me telling him like little tidbits of, or like little pieces of information about it. He was like on his end piecing things together through this like whole story framework, and it gave me sort of like the thematic like framework or understanding on a bigger picture of what these novels are actually doing. Like themes like, I know one of them was that my tourist character needs to almost have some sort of like moral awakening and sort of like maturity, right? So that like understanding that, I think, gave me just a lot of like ammunition, or just a lot of clarity on where I would, if I'm going into book two, where would I go with that? So then all these like inspirational things I'm seeing around me, I'm just able to like fit them in place. Like, and even still, like the framework that John sort of knows here, this story framework, I'm like still very much a stranger to it. But even with that, even just with some of the stuff he was telling me, it was huge. Um,
Is
yeah,
it? It's not like the hero's journey. It's something completely different, or
it's it's a little, no, it's a little deep, like John could explain it, but it's like every book will fit into sort of like a, I think it's like a content category, and different books will do different things, right? One might be sort of like your protagonist character goes through like a sort of like a maturity arc, and there's like, I think, 5 to 7 different themes, and it's kind of like your book needs to do one of these, and like if it doesn't, then it probably just won't, like the reader will be expecting it to do one of these things, right?
Mm.
So yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
Yeah, I just saw the Mandalorian with the little baby Yoda, and it was interesting because like the Mandalorian guy was like taking care two, what do you say, two things, content genres based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
mm,
Interesting. Yeah, but the baby Yoda, like, it was interesting because he was like helpless almost, but then at times, like, he would draw into the force, and you're like, oh, you could see that, like, at some point he's going to tap into this power, even though he was kind of a baby at the time. So it kind of reminds me of that a little bit, like this, like, you could see their future kind of.
yeah. So yeah. So John says, yeah. So I was a little bit off in my description there. It's kind of like it's like the fire hose concept. Like John, I know it seems like he's been studying this stuff for years. Like, and he learned it from this one like sort of like writing coach guy. I wish I knew his name off the bat, but is 12 content genres that map to the 12 hierarchies, Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah.
That's pretty
So
wild. People
yeah,
have a lot of people are come up with some interesting things with their time.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think I thought to myself as well, like about the character that like the protagonist character is I because it's noir, I may have like thought to myself that he shouldn't go through a sort of like a maturity in that, but I think I did have some level of a maturing there, um, but I think actually no, I definitely did, but one thing about noir is that um, the the city, like the city or the crime or whatever it is that's already in place, something that's very noir is that like it continues. So like in book two, something I'm thinking about is that the protagonist might actually have like a moment where he does something that is morally much better than anything that he has done prior. Like he actually, he ends up like saving or helping this like friend or like romantic interest or girl he's with or whatever. He like saves her from this situation. However, that's the actual the criminal underworld or whatever. It still continues, right? Like, and that's the part that's very noir. It's like in a crime thriller, right? The protagonist might step in, right, and he would like save the day, meaning he ends up like he ends up yeah he ends up helping the police or something, and they shut down the entire gang, and it's like, and he's like this big hero. Where something more noir is he might help his friend in this one situation, but the criminal underworld still continues, right? So that's noir versus crime thriller. He doesn't just step in and save the day like the
What
hero.
does what does noir actually mean?
Uh, it's usually like the protagonist, but also other characters and POVs in the book will be people who are very like of like very morally questionable um, character. Like
Mm,
they will have things about them like they're not like perfect characters. They're very
flawed.
yeah yeah, exact more very morally flawed. That's a good way of putting it, right? So even my protagonist character is yeah, he's pretty morally flawed in some ways. Like he's not trying to, like I just mentioned, he might step in and save his friend in this situation, but like he's also kind of involved. He's not like a criminal, but he's kind of like an observer of the criminal world, and he just lets it continue, right? So that's pretty morally flawed, right?
Yeah,
Um,
just kind of turns a blind eye, doesn't do shit about
yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
A lot of politicians.
Oh, for sure. In fact, I'd argue that they are involved sometimes.
Yeah, probably are. John mentioned the author is Sean Kone or Coyne. I don't know how you know. Author of Story Grid.
Yeah, maybe Sean Coyne, author of the Story Grid. Yeah, I got to read that at some point, the Story Grid. But John is like an amazing advocate for the Story Grid. Like Sean Coyne should probably be paying him a hefty fee every month for the coin. Okay, yeah. Uh-huh.
Someone actually like wrote a book on sales and sent it to me with like a handwritten note. It was like a nice way to, I don't know if you're gonna do that. Like maybe like you could do it to people that have like big ass audiences with podcasts or something like that. Like, hey, I thought of you. But if you know that they like that style of book or whatever, I thought it was kind of a cool idea that the guy did. He just hit me up on LinkedIn and like asked if and he had like a personal note and the actual like it's something
Um,
about like
I'll be looking into. I feel like it would be a little over, like as I get closer and closer to being done, I will be thinking more and more about how I want to get the word out on it. But if I start thinking too much about like the marketing and promotion of it, who knows? It might even derail me from just getting
getting it
it done.
done.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, my main focus right now is getting book one done. However, I have been partially derailed by starting to write book two.
Yeah, what are your like sessions look like? Are you doing it for like hours upon hours, or like you? How does that work? Like, do you?
um, I'll you gotta like let it go where it wants to go. Sometimes I'll have like an afternoon or something like this, um, where I end up working on it for like 3-4 hours or something like this. Like this doesn't mean that you're just sitting down for 3 or 4 hours straight or something, but it might mean that you are pacing across your apartment for a second, like leaving a voice clip into like Claude or something like this. Something I've actually been doing for my dialogue scenes, which I've realized for what I'm doing, like dialogue is like it's just the best. Like it's one of the it's a very cool way of describing this sort of like criminal infrastructure of the novel without like it's kind of like the show don't tell concept. So you can show the reader what's going on within the criminal infrastructure through dialogue, as opposed to like Mateo was the zone stabilizer. He controlled access to to this district, who got in, who got out. And sometimes you can do that, right? In book one, I did more of that. But I also discovered while writing book one that some of the coolest stuff is where you're having 2 characters, 3 characters, 4 characters in a room discussing what they're doing from a criminal standpoint. And I have to give a little tip of the hat actually to a book I read that is like I think it's one of the most badass books in this sort of like noir crime genre. It's the Friends of Eddie Coyle by this guy George V. Higgins, and he's got a lot of these like scenes and chapters where characters will they'll be in a car or a breakfast joint or whatever, and they're talking back and forth about what they're doing and this, but they're criminals, right? But yeah, it's cool because you see all their flaws. Maybe they're nervous about what they're doing as well, or maybe they're excited about it. Maybe they think that they've already like, oh, this is in the bag, we got this or whatever. But maybe they don't. So you can communicate a lot more than just saying, Mateo was the zone stabilizer. He controlled access to the district or whatever, which is it's cool. And sometimes you have to do that maybe for the reader, but yeah. So dialogue is a big one. Oh yeah. So I was saying like sometimes what I'll do is I'll grab like Claude with its voice note feature, and I'll talk out like the dialogue because when you talk it out, right, then you're nailing the way that humans actually speak,
Mm.
right? So it's like when we speak, a lot of time you'll be saying a sentence, right? But then you'll stop midway, and the other guy will cut the other guy off, or like this guy speaking for a bit, then he just like stops and he thinks for a bit. No, I think we should do this. Yeah, you're right. So and something I also heard is that with like dialogue is you don't want it to be too clean because that's not the way that like people actually speak, right? So with a lot of writing, like say what we do on LinkedIn, you obviously you want that to be pretty clean. You're not gonna. It's kind of like what we used to talk about even with Growth Ghost, where it's like stuff like remove adverbs and this, right? But when actual humans or actual people are talking, it's not these clean sentences, right? It's one guy's he's kind of figuring out how he actually feels about this thing, right? And one sentence might just be like, I don't know. What do you think, right?
Yeah, it's interesting going back to the show don't tell thing. So sometimes you kind of draw people, like you mentioned the thing earlier where someone got like robbed and then didn't take the money and gave it back. So that's kind of like, I guess, a situation where you're kind of describing what's going on in these characters versus like kind of telling them like what you'd mentioned earlier about like describing the scene so much.
So actually, yes, he does take the cash, but he gives back the wallet, right?
Oh, he gives back the wallet. Okay.
Yeah, he gives back the wallet with all like the cards and stuff like this, because like the cards would be like traceable and stuff. So he just takes like the cash, and then I actually have it where the two guys on the motorbike who just robbed this tourist. I like this is one of those things where when you go chapter by chapter, like, and you're kind of figuring it out as you go, it's kind of cool because then my next instinct was, oh wait, what if I had a little chapter, like just a short one, immediately after he robs this tourist, that these two guys on the motorbike, they like drive back to their neighborhood, right, which is away from this slightly more touristy area. And then when they're back in their neighborhood, they just stop at like a little tienda, like this little shop, and they like, just get some beers and like some empanadas. And then they're out there just like on the table talking about robbing this tourist, right? And the character names I gave them were like Oscar and Fernie, which are actually Colombian. They're like, and it's cool. Like, apparently those are very like Colombian working class names and stuff, right? And I have these two characters, Oscar and Fernie, would have very kind of opposite personalities. Where Fernie's the one where he's kind of like his very first line in that chapter is, "I don't know how much longer can we really do this? How much longer can we really like rob these tourists, man? There's like too much police coverage going on there, like." And Oscar's like, nah, you're freaking out, man. What you're still shaking or something like this, right? So Fernie's the one who still he still kind of has that moral fiber to him, and he's like nervous about it. And then Oscar's kind of like calming him down and stuff. And he goes into the tienda, and he gets like another beer for him, and he also brings like some empanadas, just like as a little surprise, or here you go, man. Like it's like, oh, thanks, man. And he's sort of like talking him down and stuff, like because he needs him as his partner, right? As a partner in crime, right? So yeah. Oh, I love this part. And like this is what I mean. Like the not outlining is kind of beautiful as a writer because you're figuring it out. Like it's just like this is your first time telling the story, right? So you'll come across epiphanies all the time. And when he takes the money out of the tourist's wallet, he sees a picture of the tour like this tourist character with his mom, little photo in the wallet, right? That the tourist had. She takes the cash out, gives the wallet back. So when he's back at the tienda on the other side of town, rougher neighborhood, but they're protected there. He's like, that guy had a picture of his mom and him in his wallet, man. Made me think about my mom. It's like, and even Oscar there is kind of like, yeah, yeah, whatever. Just drink your beer, man. like, like, calm down, man. You're freaking out. Like, I get it, but and it's like, what else are you gonna do other than this? I don't know, man. Maybe get a job at the factory or something. Ah, yeah, right. That's a good way to stay poor. So they're just having this kind of like moral debate back and forth sort of thing. Like I said, dialogue is one of the best ways to do that. You're seeing the true like shortcomings of the character. Like, is he nervous? Is this guy like overly angry, stressed in this? And dialogue, I think, is one of the best ways to reveal that.
John said that he's a principal robber. I like it. It kind of reminds me of like when you see like, I don't know, people in prisons like murder each other that are like, I don't know, sex offenders or child abusers or some shit like that, and they're like the first to go, and it's like almost like a there's like even in that system there's like that's like looked down upon or whatever. So it's interesting like these
Yeah.
different rules.
Yeah, I know. That's an interesting thing too. Yeah, it's like if this guy, yeah, if he did something like if he, you know, uh, did something to a kid or a woman or something like this, then it's like he's just a level of crime that the other prisoners in there, the other criminals in there are like, nah, like you're going to pay for this. Meanwhile, it's like the other guy, he could have like murdered a couple dudes in gangs or something, and like that's more acceptable in that world, right? So,
Yeah, like
which is
war too. It's probably that way.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Eh, it's interesting too because I think that a lot of like noir crime novels kind of explore that on an unspoken level of like what is um like, is the cartel boss who's more removed from the crime, is he any better than the ground level criminals who are committing it? Like
And
questions like that, you know?
he just reminded me of like I remember like a while back ago there was like a cartel in Mexico that I guess some people got shot up or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, like sorry, like we made a mistake." They had like a press release almost about it, like when they almost like it's just really interesting, like how like they're really well organized these cartels, and it's bizarre.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think they're kind of like allowed to operate. Well, yeah, they obviously are on some level. It's kind of like, I mean, in Mexico, for example, kind of seems like the cartel is probably almost as powerful as the government.
Probably more powerful, I would think, right?
Yeah, yeah, maybe. Yeah. And I think that they have, well, yeah, they deal with politicians on some level. Like they have, like people are getting paid off, or like they have some
Mike, you
how
there?
like a lot of things are able to stay quiet. Cartel and Colombian cartel uh, have like obviously they just been sending so much so many drugs and like cocaine and all this to the US, and it's kind of like on some level, of course a lot of it's underground and they're able to sneak it in this, but like I don't know. I think sometimes people are turning a blind eye. Let's just say that.
Is Colombia really as bad as they say for cocaine, or is that like just something that's like a because everyone always talks about Colombia and cocaine, so I would imagine there's a lot of cocaine or cocaine cartels down there.
Uh, yeah, yeah, definitely. But it's interesting if you compare two countries, like say Brazil and Colombia. I think, I saw a video actually just last night where I think Brazil, like even in Rio, this particular video was like Rio de Janeiro, and it's showing kind of like a major street, right? That's like closer to the beach and closer to like the richer, wealthier areas of Rio de Janeiro. And then right behind it, it's showing like the slums. And on this video that this guy's filming, he's like, you can literally hear like machine guns going off in that slum there, right? So if I had to give, I'd say that like, yeah, Colombia, lots of cartels, gangs, all this, right? And is it dangerous? Yes, absolutely, especially if you go looking for trouble. But I think I would give that little edge to Brazil in terms of like the more dangerous country, because yeah, if you're talking about slums like with machine guns and this and that, like I don't know if it quite happens on that same level in Colombia. Yes, there are slums, barrios, all this, but I think they're a little more like it's not complete turf warfare, at least not now. It used to be, right? But yeah, I don't think it's like usually complete gang warfare in the streets, the way it used to be back in like what the 80s, 90s Pablo Escobar era.
Yeah, the El Salvador is pretty gnarly too. Like, there's a lot of like gangs, MS-13. A lot of them get shipped back from LA to El Salvador, and I know that that president down there was like pretty much arresting anyone that like looked like gang related. Like, he was just arresting anyone that had like gang tattoos or whatever, and just throwing them in jail. Like, just not even like really giving them any like rights. But Brazil is gnarly too. Like, what was that one movie a while back ago where like they were going through all those slums and it was just super fucking gnarly? Like, it was dangerous as fuck. I forget.
Was it City of God?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, yeah. I don't. I Yeah, I remember I have a Brazilian friend who had recommended I watched that. I can't remember if I even ended up watching the whole thing. I should now. It's actually probably very much in the vein of what I'm doing, just maybe without the tourist.
Yeah, it's a good film. You should definitely check it out. So do you plan on doing like other? So sounds like you're doing two different cities. So you planning on doing like most of South America then, or is that? Yeah, I don't know if you've thought that far ahead, but it seems like maybe that could be the direction.
Yeah, I want at least to have that like flexibility, right? Um, but I could definitely there's like 3 or 4 Colombian cities in particular that I think would make for like very interesting, very interesting books. And some of them I haven't even been to yet. But yeah, so far Medellin, Bogota. Other ones I think could be interesting are like Cartagena and Cali for sure. And then like I have an idea even of oh the tour, yeah, the Rio can be interesting. Yeah. um, I might even do one based in Paraguay, because even Paraguay, which is like definitely like a quieter, safer country, like in man, you compare it to like Colombia or Brazil. In comparison to Colombia and Brazil, I think that most of these other countries are maybe, but I don't know. Ecuador is probably really dangerous too. Um,
I think a lot of people that haven't been to Colombia, that haven't traveled a lot, probably think it's pretty dangerous, depending on like the city. Like, they're just apprehensive to travel there. Is that not the case? And most of like, is it pretty safe to travel in like Medellin and some of these places, or is it still a little bit dangerous?
if you if you stick to the good neighborhoods and don't go looking for trouble, I think that you can be absolutely fine for the most part. Bad things can still happen. However, the same thing could probably be said about Toronto, New York. Where are you? Los Angeles?
LA, yeah, LA has a lot of crime for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Like,
Yeah,
could somebody come, like, say myself, come to Los Angeles and get
oh, for
robbed at
sure.
gunpoint or something like this? Like,
I,
yeah,
I've seen someone get shot in a bar in Venice Beach, and like I
there
was
you
in the
go.
bar when it happens. I mean,
Holy
I don't
shit.
look at it like, yeah, it was like a freak thing or whatever, but still, it's like you're like when it happens to you, and you're in that situation, you're like, oh my god, like this is fucking gnarly. Venice
Yeah. So
Beach
that
actually, yeah, that place is. Oh, I've had fucked up experiences there many times.
Venice Beach, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's the same. It's the same way with South America because, like, to give you like my experience with it, right? I've I've never seen someone get shot down here. I um I haven't even seen someone get robbed in front of me. Um, but I have heard stories from other people, right? Um, yeah, like I have a friend. He's just a little bit older than me. I think he's like maybe 45 or something like this. And him and a friend were walking one night in this neighborhood, actually of Bogota, where I am, and they're just walking along, and a motorbiker, but with two guys on it. This is very common in South America and very common in Colombia, very common in Brazil, but really all of South America. It's like these like two guys on a bike. Watch out for that, right? So actually, my chapter with the Oscar and Fernie thing, it's based off of something that does happen a lot, right? So, but my buddy, he's just walking with a friend, and this bike pulls up. The guy on the back gets off, runs at runs at them, and has a machete.
damn.
And it's like, yeah. And then apparently, like the way it went is like my friend ran off, his friend ran off as well. I think they even went like opposite directions, and they just, I think, both got away. I think they did not end up getting robbed that night, right? And that's another thing too. Like I've watched and I've seen enough stuff where sometimes these guys, even on these motorbikes, they don't necessarily, they really a lot of the time don't want to have to hurt you. And in fact, they're probably hoping that you just hand over the money and that they don't have to do anything with that machete or that gun or whatever. It's meant more to be like to scare the shit out of you so that you just give over the money. They don't necessarily want to kill you. I have heard, and I'm, but in Colombia, I'm sure it exists too. You also have your psychopaths. Like you actually have your guys who like the killing, right? Um, and they're like they don't mind it at all, right? They're like just stone cold. They don't even have a heart left.
Sociopaths.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's kind of the interesting thing about like that dynamic I was telling you about this guy Oscar and Fernie, because it's kind of like Oscar probably is the more cold blooded one. Fernie's the one where it's kind of like, you know, I don't even want to be doing this necessarily, but the money's good. That's another thing he says. I know the money's good, but like
It's
how
kind of like
much
a
longer?
survival thing, I suppose, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Do you want to just be like poor, like just working at that factory, or do you want to do this that you know is completely morally wrong, like dangerous, but the money's good.
Is there much of a middle class in some of these cities, or is it kind of just like rich and poor?
You know what? I think that there is honestly a middle class. I've seen it like in a city like Bogota or Medellin. There are like no there is a whole class system, and we have it in like Canada and the U.S. as well. Like I'm gonna say I think that like a Colombia has it just as much as a Canada or the U.S. Um, but they do have like pretty at the bottom. They do have very extreme levels of poverty. Like, um, I have a lot of thoughts on that subject though. Because I will say that, like in the US or Canada, I think when you fall through the cracks, some of these people fall like really hard, right? And they get addicted to drugs and all this. Plus, let's think about this too. In Canada, you fall through the cracks, you become you're on the street, you also become a drug addict, this and that. Well, you're also in one of the coldest places in the world. So, good luck surviving through the whole winter, right? Where it's kind of
Hmm.
like, God, if you're gonna be poor in a place, maybe at least be in a place where it's warm all year round.
Yeah.
Because I think that plays a factor. Um,
Yeah, that's I don't even know how people do it in like New York or Canada or places that are cold. It's just
yeah,
you need some sort of shelter.
yeah,
At least
yeah,
Canada has healthcare. US, you're kind of screwed like with healthcare. It's like you don't have it.
yeah. Yeah, it is a good thing that we do have that. Like, yeah, you guys in the States, it's like even what like when you like break your arm or something like that, like what kind of money are we talking about here just to like get a cast on that and like
I
get
mean, you could
healed
end up
up?
with a huge fucking bill like after your deductible. You don't. I don't know. It's kind of scary sometimes to even like go to the doctor because you have to kind of make sure that it's in network and that you're covered and all this kind of jazz. But they make it really confusing on purpose so that you end up kind of getting screwed. How do you do medical down there? Do you just if you need to go to the hospital or something like that, you just go, or like do you have to
I'm man,
you just avoid it
my
as
my
much?
risk tolerance is so different from most people, man. I don't know. Um, I God, I don't even want to say this, but dude, I don't even right now. I don't even have health insurance. I don't know. I just avoid. I've like I'm very healthy. I have like zero health problems. Knock on wood. You know, so I don't find that I ever need a doctor. I will say in Paraguay, a couple months back, Paraguay has some very questionable roads, and I was stepping down from the sidewalk at one point. I was actually with my buddy Anselmo from Growth Coast, right? And so he's still in Paraguay right now, and we were just talking back and forth, and it's like, should I? We're walking home. He's like, I'll come to your Airbnb. I'm like, just to drop me off or whatever, right? Like for the walk. I'm like, well, you stayed in my Airbnb, right? And he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, well, why don't you show me yours? Like, let's go up to yours. I want to see where you're at. And he's like, okay, yeah. So then we like turn quickly or whatever, right? And as I turn and then I walk down from the sidewalk onto these like to even say cobblestone is actually a nice way of saying it. They have some roads there that are kind of like just rock and gravel almost, right? And going along that in a car is like just like bumpy and just brutal. Anyway, I stepped down onto this like road and must have came down on like something that some rock or something that was just not even, and I thought it was maybe potentially going to be bad, but I kind of just like sprained my ankle, came
Mm.
down on my foot the wrong way. So that's been the closest thing I've had to an injury or whatever while down in South America.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel like they probably have some sort of like urgent care clinics or something. They're probably not even as expensive as like the States or Canada if you need it.
This is the thing is that like let's say I did need to get something done, it probably would be so cheap that it would actually not be that big of a deal. Aside from obviously if it's something like massive, you need some crazy like surgery or something. I'm sure that could be expensive, right? But for example, dental care in Colombia is so much cheaper than like the States or Canada. Like if you need to go get like your teeth cleaned or whatever, or like a full like dental session or whatever, you can get it done for very cheap. I don't off the top of my head, I don't know what the prices are, but like if something costs like 90 back in Canada, we're probably talking like $30 here. Like
Damn. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a thing like where people travel to like Mexico and to like Eastern Europe for like dental because it's so fucking expensive in the States and to Canada.
One of the areas where you really see how cheap things like really are in comparison, or one of the biggest like deltas or like gaps, like exponentially speaking, is like with services. So, for example, when I'm back in Canada, there are some cheaper barbers in this, but there's been times in Canada where for just even a head shave and a beard trim, I could pay with tax and tip included in everything, maybe 60 to 80 bucks. Okay. Down in South America as a whole, but especially, man, Colombia, services is where you really see the difference. So I might honestly pay between like 15 and $30 for the same thing down here,
Interesting.
because it's the cost of labor is uh is so much cheaper, right? So if you're talking about like buying imported goods down in South America, like some name brand or something like
Went
this,
to the
if you need
stock
to buy
farm.
a pair of Nike shoes in Colombia, it's not going to be much cheaper than Canada or the US. In fact, with all the different import taxes and stuff like this, it could be about the same and actually possibly more for sure. Yeah.
Do people tip down there, like at restaurants and like I don't know the barber shop and things like that, or is it? I know that some cultures they don't tip, others do. I know Americans were big on tipping, so is it like that all over there too?
Yeah, so tipping is not like fully like obligatory down here. Like but I tend to tip just like a flat, like I tip like about 10% just about everywhere. And now like the reason why I tip 10% is because like you give a 10% tip at a restaurant or the barber or a bar or whatever it might be, honestly, they are like very grateful for that, and I can tell. So clearly, not everybody is doing it. So I feel pretty good leaving a 10% tip. I also think that like in my country of Canada, right? Like it's gotten ridiculous, man. It just continues to get more and more ridiculous as I'm down here.
Yeah,
I hear people talking up there of like now like 30% tips.
yeah.
What are you talking about? Why don't I just pay? You know what? I've got a better idea. Why don't I just start paying your server a salary? Like, because it's at the point where it's like the reason why the tipping is so hefty is just because like restaurants, their business model is just so out of whack. Where like with cost of goods, rent, um, labor costs, heating, electricity, all when everything is said and done, right? Well, they're operating at a 3 to 5% profit margin. So because of this, your tip is actually the thing that makes their whole like
Thing work.
restaurant economy work, because that's how they're able to, they're like the only industry where they don't have to pay the standard minimum wage, right? And we basically almost like subsidize the servers and waiters, uh, see you, John, and all that with our tips. So yeah.
Yeah, I actually went to an event recently and they had an iPad for the when you bought the food and it was like 25 or like 30, 25, 20 or something like that. That was like the things that they gave. I'm like it's crazy like to your point how out
Did
of hand it's kind of gotten like and
you
with
say
the
35?
no like 30, 25, and 20. But this was
Oh
like
yeah.
at a like an event, a festival type thing. But yeah, it was just ridiculous though cuz it's like dude, this is like insane. All you're doing is like taking the order. It's not like
Yeah. I know that's where it's particularly ridiculous too. Like and that's become the thing too, right? In the States, in Canada as well, where it's like the electronic board or whatever, or the tablet or whatever, where you you then at the end when you're paying, like or you have the option of like leaving a tip. And I've heard that some people just go no tip, which is very, yeah, like that's pretty understandable because what are they really doing, right? They're just taking the order and that's it.
Yeah, I know we're wrapping up here. So last question for you. What's next for you as far as like you're gonna finish, it sounds like you're starting the second one and then you're still kind of finalizing the first one. So like what's the next steps for you, I suppose?
Yeah. So actually, something I did not mention is I also have, Jake Summers
Yeah,
from Dark Ghost.
yep.
So he is currently like acting almost kind of like as a beta reader of my first book, right? So he's going through that right now. I also read his book, right? And he's got more commitments than I do. He's got one kid and another one on the way in like July or something.
Oh wow.
So he's like busy. I have like more time freedom. So I blasted through his book. I actually really enjoyed it. And he's also reading mine, right? So I am curious to hear his feedback as well. It's not like I'm completely waiting around for that before I do anything, but I know that will eventually
Oh,
come. But I'm kind of reading through the first book now and taking notes, leaving notes in a journal notebook as I go about what needs to change. And then once I've gone through the whole thing, this is the this is like the second time I've done this, going through the book and leaving notes. Yeah. So then once I've gone through the whole thing and have notes for every chapter, then I will go back and start working through each one with something that will probably look a lot more like line editing and cutting and stuff like that at this point.
does that get tedious? Because it seems like sometimes when I'm so close to information that I get bored reading it, or like my ADD kicks in or something, and I just kind of like skip like reading. Like I know what the sentence means, and I don't like really read every word. Like I don't know if like your brain does that.
I'm like I'm really meticulous and I've I've put in some reps as an editor for sure. Like with the whole ghostwriting thing. Um, yeah. And man, if you can do it ghostwriting for other clients and go through and do and put on that editor's cap and do that time and time again, like for hours at a time, you can definitely do it for yourself for a fiction novel because the truth is, at least this is true for me, I'm more interested in the fiction novel. Like, like I don't know, man.
I
Maybe
get
I'm
it.
just more selfish or something, but I've been in the whole marketing agency game for like getting close to 10 years and like helping clients, grow their brands, build their businesses. It's cool. It's awesome. It's one of the best ways I think for a beginner entrepreneur to get into the game and start making cash flow. It's one of the best, I don't want to say easy, one of the best like cash flow business models is like an agency. You can pretty much start up any agency like today. Now there's gonna be skills that you have to learn and stuff like this, but you can get up and you can get into the game pretty quick.
Actually, one last question popped up. Like, what could this be something that you could potentially like move away from an agency model to like, I don't know, like helping people with books potentially, or if it's big enough, maybe sell it to like for a movie. I mean, is there other options there potentially? Pass.
Well, the movie would be the dream, right? The movie would be the dream. I could kind of see some of the stuff I'm doing in like sort of like a movie or like
Netflix.
a Netflix series or something like and I feel like almost anybody who's written a fiction novel could probably say that I could totally see this in a movie or something. But I even as I was writing certain things, I was almost kind of thinking of it from that standpoint as I'm describing things, and I can see the images in my head and stuff, right? But I do think there's a lot of room for writing, coaching, and stuff like this. Like even with John, I feel like he has an opportunity to do like some fiction writing, coaching. So yeah, I'm open-minded for sure. But one key, and I think John knows this too. He's not here anymore, but like you, it's hard to be the fiction writing coach guy if you like. John's been working on his novel for a long time now, and now he wants to get it done like this year, which is definitely smart and highly recommended because once you've like released that book, right now you have something you can actually show, and it's like now you can truly be the fiction writing coach guy because
Because you
um,
have a product.
yeah, you're so much more credible, right? Like, he might have something like a 150,000 word book by the end of the year, right? And it's like if you have that to show and you have like sales and numbers and stuff to back it up, then it'd be very easy to be the fiction writing
Coach.
coach. Yeah.
Makes sense. All right, man. That was fun. I'll talk to you later. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next Friday.
Yeah, that was great. See you guys.
See
Bye.
ya.